Welcome to the Ultrahuman experience. This session is free for you for the complete experience. Please download the Ultrahuman app.
Hi, I'm Matt Russo. I'm an astrophysicist and a musician. And I'm here to take you on a journey from Earth into the deep reaches of interstellar space. Outside our solar system, billions and billions of miles away. But to get there, first, settle into your bed. Allow yourself to relax and let go of your day. In your mind's eye, let yourself see the vast expanse of outer space, sprinkled with tiny speckles of light. The galaxy, vast and full of wonder, and home to an infinite number of marvels. This is my home. My name is Voyager 1, and on September 5th, 1977, I began my mission to travel into space, explore Jupiter and Saturn, and report my findings back to NASA. I launched 16 days after my twin, Voyager 2, but overtook him a few months after my launch. The planets had a rare alignment when we were launched, which happens only once every 176 years, and which allowed us to use the gravitational assists of the outer planets to swing ourselves further out into space than any other human-made objects before us. Out of the solar system and into interstellar space, where I now travel long after my mission has ended. As my story will show, when one mission ends, there's always another journey that awaits. And now, I am the first human-made object to make it into interstellar space. The weather was perfect when it was time for me to launch on that late summer's day in Port Canaveral, Florida. The humidity was high and the skies were clear, as the sun shone down in brilliant golden rays and warmed the exterior of my outer shell. I could sense the excitement and confidence from my team at NASA after the successful launch of my twin. Everything just felt right. Standing tall, positioned for launch, I took in the sensation of being completely motionless and grounded for what would be the last time. In this stillness, I was able to take in the gentleness of a breeze so subtle that it could easily go unnoticed. A hint of salinity hung in the air from the nearby Atlantic Ocean. The rockets began to flare, and I began to vibrate, first gently, and then with more ferocity. An intense heat rose from below as the countdown began. And then I was launched straight towards the powder blue morning sky. The speed and force of my launch was exhilarating, and I cut through the Earth's atmosphere, rising high above the coastal peninsula state. Houses were scattered like matchboxes between gray ribbons of highway, which cut through green marshes and a lush landscape. It was rush hour, and the road was brimmed with cars. It was the last human activity I would witness before my final parting with planet Earth. At first, the Atlantic glittered, as if golden gems crafted by the sun's rays floated on the sapphire waves. But as I traveled further away from the Earth, it seemed as if the color of the waves was darkening to deeper shades of sapphire and cobalt blue. the sheer abundance of water on Earth became a soothing visual. Escaping the Earth's gravitational pull, I entered the darkness of space and felt a sense of solitude for the first time on my mission. Clouds of linen white and dusty gray swirled around the Earth's atmosphere as I captured my first image of the planet. A blue orb of hope and serenity. The moon, like a friendly, smaller companion, appeared behind the Earth but dimmer, in shades of taupe with dark smudges across its face. The luminous glow of the Earth and the moon became like bright beacons of a lighthouse in the perpetual darkness of space. I thought of all the activity and life on my home planet, which, before long, began to appear like a distant glowing marble in the black expanse of space. When I left Earth, I was traveling at 40 kilometers per second. As I slowed down, I grew used to the constant motion and the silence. Without air, sound waves cannot travel in space. The serenity is like no other. If you were to imagine the quietest moments of your life, space is more silent. If you were to visualize the volume knob of a stereo system in your grasp, turning it down, down, down to mute, space is quieter still. For months I traveled, anticipating passing through the asteroid belt, which was a known challenge on the mission. NASA knew the risk, but rather than worry, hoped for the best. As I came upon the asteroid belt, a sense of ease came over me, since most asteroids were the size of grains of sand or small marbles, in shades of dusty gray and ruddy brown, with great enough distances between them that I could escape unscathed. Once I had passed through the asteroid belt and overtaken my twin, I traveled onwards towards my Jovian mission. It took only a year and a half from the date of my launch to reach my first target, Jupiter. The gaseous planet appeared like an impressionist painting. A globe with swirling clouds of amber and rusty browns, and creams and soft blues. It was clear from the constant motion of the gases and the fervent activity how volatile the planet was in comparison to Earth. I soon came upon the Great Red Spot. It was like a churning, flame-red hurricane, twice the size of Earth, in constant motion, its outer edge moving twice as fast as the most powerful hurricanes to occur on Earth. The gases of the red spot stay in motion, their colors covering the surface like ribbons of pastel orange wax. There was something beautiful about the idea that the storm had been raging continuously since humans first observed it, more than 100 years earlier, and probably longer. Over the rest of the globe, too, the outermost layers of gas swirled, white, blue, and tangerine, like colors shining on the surface of a puddle of oil. Below these clouds, the planet was a mystery. I encountered the faint rings around Jupiter for the first time, like a narrow band of dust. The inner ring was thin and bright, like a halo, while the outer rings were more faint and translucent. gentle tug of a gravitational assist guided me to Io, one of Jupiter's moons. As I approached, I witnessed active volcanoes on the surface of Io, the first volcanic activity to be discovered beyond planet Earth. Past eruptions had formed dark pockmarks upon the saffron-colored surface of the moon. Io had vibrant shades of yellow over its surface, which were regions of volcanically deposited sulfur dioxide ice. On further approach, I saw two plumes of blue rise up from Io's surface. Volcanic eruptions that looked like bright spots against the darkness of space. Io felt mystical, its surface covered with yellows almost as bright as daffodils. I felt a sense of pride as I transmitted these images back to Earth. I was a pioneer, sharing new information with the scientists who had created me. For months, I traveled around the moons of Jupiter, including Amalthea, a smaller moon with an irregular shape, which was a vibrant shade of red. With a surface scarred by craters, it looked like an oversized piece of coral, of the kind one might find in the depths of a sea on Earth. Europa, the smallest of Jupiter's major moons, was like an antique copper-colored globe, covered with a layer of ice, which had cracked and fissured. From my findings, scientists discovered that Europa was the smoothest solid object to be found in the solar system. I would encounter many planets and moons, but it was only Europa, which was like a marble or a crystal ball, that inspired in me an urge to touch its smooth surface. But I was only there to capture information and send it back to Earth, and so I continued on my way. The largest of the moons in the solar system, Ganymede, is the only moon known to have its own magnetic field. Ganymede's magnetic field formed ribbons of luminous electrified gas over its surface. 4 times more reflective than Earth's moon, it appears to sparkle against the dark sky, like metallic gold, glittering in spots that contrasted with the dark craters of older terrains. I marveled at how each moon was so unique and different, though they all orbited Jupiter together. Diverse, yet dependent on one another. Unique, yet harmonious. Volatile and stormy, yet surrounded by serenity. My flyby through the Jovian system showed me how balance can exist in the stormiest and most turbulent of settings. Having shared hundreds of images with NASA, I was ready to continue deeper into space towards the second largest planet in the solar system, Saturn. For 20 months, I traveled once again through the deep solitude and darkness of space. I was still reeling from the delight of the new discoveries I had made. A feeling similar to what humans must experience when they travel to a new and unknown destination for the first time. I had a thirst now for more knowledge and for more enriching experiences. 3 years after launch, I came upon the marvels of Saturn. With its dark and light bands of rotating clouds, encircled by the iconic rings. Saturn, an oblong orb slightly flattened at the poles, was streaked in neutral shades of beige and seemed far less tumultuous than Jupiter. During the flyby, I encountered Saturn's largest moon, Titan. It was the second largest natural satellite in the solar system. With a thick atmosphere like Earth's, Titan is like a peach orb covered by an opalescent haze created by the nitrogen-rich atmosphere. From afar, it's as if a translucent layer of electric blue cloaks the moon like a veil of fine gauze. My observations revealed that Titan experienced rainstorms and winds, which made me nostalgic for the soothing sounds of the rain falling on Earth. On my closest approach to the rings of Saturn, I captured an image of the hundreds of ringlets, or smaller rings, that make up each large ring. Each ringlet is made of trillions of small icy particles in a synchronized dance. Some particles were as small as grains of sand, traveling in rings along with floating mountain-sized chunks of ice and water and rocks. The varying shades of light and darkness in the rings of Saturn created a unique and memorable beauty, rivaled by no other planet in the solar system. At times, the rings shimmered in varying shades of bronze and gold. At other times, they glowed a soft rose pink. The neutral tones were soothing, and the rings themselves were entrancing, like the grooves of a vinyl record spinning gently on a console just before the needle touches down and music begins to play. The shepherding moon Prometheus confines particles into a narrow ring at the outer edge of the main ring system. I was the first to discover these moons. New discoveries like this are what made the exploration fulfilling to me. They reminded me that there was always more to discover and kept me feeling invigorated and curious about what lay ahead. The rotation of Saturn's rings, an effect of larger cosmic forces, reminded me that I too had relied on NASA and the gravitational assists of Earth and Jupiter to come this far into space. I then passed Prometheus, a moon with an irregular, potato-like shape and an icy surface covered with craters. It appeared porous and looked like an aged lava rock floating in orbit. Much like the other newly discovered moons, Atlas and Pandora, the shepherding moons had unusual formations, without symmetry or smoothness. Pandora, also shaped like a potato, with deep craters on its surface, had a silvery gray hue from a coating of a fine dust-like icy material. The moons disrupt the paths of some of the particles in the rings while keeping others in place, thriving in a constant balance of give and take. Saturn and my close encounters with its iconic rings and the newly discovered shepherding moons would mark the end of my mission. Now, I would travel away from the solar system and into places truly unknown. I thought back on all the colors I had captured, from the cerulean blue and white haze of Earth to the vibrant reds and oranges of Jupiter and the muted golds of Saturn. Apart from the planets, I had encountered so many moons, like Ganymede, with its icy surfaces engraved by fissures, to the glowing, blue-hazed, melon-colored orb that was Titan. I had unlocked all these mysteries for humankind. I turned away from Saturn and continued into deep space. I soared along at 17 kilometers per second. The velvety black of perpetual night became my new normal. As I traveled deeper and deeper into darkness, into interstellar space, towards solitude. When I had reached a distance of more than 4 billion miles from the sun, NASA instructed me to point my camera back towards the solar system one last time. I captured what became known as the Solar System Family Portrait, a mosaic of images that showed all the planets of the system together, illuminated by the sun. My mission had exceeded the expectations by lasting decades beyond the 5 years of exploration that had been anticipated. I was the first human-made object to see the solar system from the outside looking in. My family portrait images brought a new perspective of the solar system to humankind. When they were magnified, they showed that the Earth was just a tiny blue speck, lit by a beam of warm, radiant light from the sun. These images were my farewell to the planet that had conceived me. Then my cameras shut off for good to keep me afloat with just enough power as I left the solar system. As the first human-made object to cross the threshold of interstellar space, I was alone, a pioneer with no declared mission. The darkness and quietude soothed me. I was so far from home, and yet I was connected to it and able to send back information in the years to come. Now, I am 13.5 billion miles away from the sun, and it gives me a great sense of contentment to know that I survived past the 5 years that people assumed I would last. Unscathed by the asteroid belt, intact and still flying solo into the darkness, I have survived. A part of me believes that I may one day connect with life again. And should that day come, someone may find the Voyager golden record that I have transported with me from the Earth. The 12-inch gold-plated copper disc contains information that an advanced technological civilization could convert into diagrams and photographs. I hope to someday encounter life that may hear the sounds of Bach and humpback whales and messages in 50 languages that offer greetings. I carry with me this record and this hope. The record contains the message per aspera ad astra in Morse code, which translates to through hardships to the stars. And for all the hardships, I have made it to the stars, and they are now my forever home. Good night and sweet dreams.